But Prey.
We're gonna get into it. Prey.
We're gonna get into it.
So we watched this movie.
We did.
So we watched this movie like how many days ago? Not too many. 4 or 5?
At the weekend. At the weekend.
Yeah, we watched it with Christy Joe, who's actually listening to us, which is wonderful. And,
yes.
Holy hell, man.
That was an experience.
That was definitely an experience. What were your hopes for a new Predator film?
Yeah, no, I was about to ask you the same question. No, my hopes have been dashed because, like, I only really like 2 Predator films, maybe 3, and I like the original. I like Predators, the one with Adrian Brody. I like it. I admit it. I think it's fine. And then Predator 2 is just sort of okay. Everything else I don't count and I don't pay attention to. Alien vs. Predator is quite bad. The Predator that Shane Black did was
that was a big disappointment. In fact, I have a few stories about these experiences in the other Predator movies.
Yes.
So I loved the Predator since I watched it when I was 11.
Yeah.
With my dad and my brother. And I was shielding my eyes from, like, when you could see the corpse in the helicopter, the downed helicopter at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then, I was like, scary. Because, like, I have something about, like, dead bodies and corpses, which is, I have a weird relationship with it, just because, like, on one hand, I think designing and creating disgusting, like, dead bodies for films, as long as they're fake, they rule. Just send me all the dead corpses. I'll put them in some kind of a... I'll put them in a box somewhere and, open them up for Halloween and scare people with it. Or put them in other movies. But real dead bodies, I remember just seeing there was a car crash a long time ago in 2001. And we had to, like, it was a huge traffic jam. And we had to, like, go, like, pass by the incident. And I could see, a dead body lying there with the, blanket, is that what you call it?
Yeah.
And I could see a little bit of their, like, pale fingers sticking out, and that haunted me for, like, a couple of days after. And so, like, for me, I just can't help it with real dead corpses. But when it's fake stuff, it's like, yeah, but, like, so when I was watching movies at the time when I was a kid, no, I hated all that stuff. I was traumatized by the one by Ben Gardner's head in Jaws.
Yeah.
That was de facto the scariest moment when I was, like, 5 when I watched Jaws. And and I remember being in bed. My mom tucked me in bed, and all I could think of in my mind was, like, that head coming out of the wreckage in the boat.
Love it.
I'm like Jim Morrison, haunted by a car accident on the highway.
Seriously.
I have no idea who Jim Morrison is, but
it's all right. That's what Google's for.
I'm not as wise and smart as Frank is.
Frank is well versed.
So anyway, I wanted to continue with, after the scary experience watching Predator.
Yeah.
Because I could feel the brutality and the nature of a film like that with its tone, and how it discarded characters left and right, which was new to me. You know what I mean? I eventually grew to really love that film and rewatched it. We bought the DVDs whenever they came out, and it just became a staple in one of my favorite movies ever.
Yeah.
Just a combination of Arnold Schwarzenegger and science fiction, and making it making it like a Black Ops. Was it a Black Ops mission? Like a special ops mission?
Yeah.
All that put together with all these wonderful, like, dare I say, character actors who are in it.
What's also
John McTiernan.
What's also really good about the first Predator is the, like, I suppose the subversion of expectations, and that is that you have this group, this, like, what, 5 or 6 dudes that are, like, jacked as heck, right? the most jacked dudes imaginable, that just
glistening jack dudes.
Yes, one by one they're getting taken down, like they're the top of the game. and one by one they're getting taken down to there's just one guy or so, like one or two guys left. There's Arnold who stays behind, but then they get the girl and the other, like another guy or two other guys gets out, right? Something.
None of them get out.
Well, the girl gets out.
Wait, then the general comes in.
Oh yeah, then he kills. Yeah, that's right. So only the girl was out. Yeah. So they all die except for Arnold, and so it's like you have these big macho dudes who just get floored, and that I think that's great because it's
I think get floored in a good way. The way that movie picks them apart as the predator hunts them by not even by being so careful with when they show the predator, when they don't show the predator, and
very much a lot of strength.
Yeah, and it's just I don't know, like the term movie magic gets put around, thrown around a lot, but it is, we rewatched it after Prey, and it was like, oh, this cool water after this dry hell, and it was just like that's how you make movies. I love this.
Yes. No, it's true. Yeah, I guess my expectations were so low because of Predators, the Predator rather, because of The Predator by Shane Black. Where I didn't. It was a weird one where they turned autism into a superpower, and it was like that's I just don't know what they were doing. There was a lot of over the top crass humor. It felt like it just didn't land. It didn't land for me at all. So with this, I was like. I was intrigued by the idea, right? I like the idea of Predator in 1700s America, Midwest America, fucking up some shit. I think it has a really good premise.
True. I will say.
Go on.
I will say that I don't know if you've ever seen the fan film that they made maybe 10 years ago.
Predator versus Batman.
No, have you seen that one too? Yeah, that one.
Yeah, I've seen that.
The production value was quite good.
That was fun.
But no, there's another one that was like a short Predator movie with Predator versus a knight in the forest.
Oh, okay.
So this kind of concept was not kind of new to me because I felt like maybe Dan Trachtenberg, who directed Prey, probably saw that and was like. And then he was like, the gun from Predator 2.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I was going to say the gun predates anything else, so you could... Also, Alien versus Predator establishes in their coming to Earth a long, long, long time ago.
True. That's
so I'm hard pressed to give the fan film the credit for the concept when it's laid in Predator 2, and then
fair enough.
But it's still cool. It's still cool.
It's still very cool.
I would definitely watch an Alien versus a Knight movie. Hello, Pathfinder. Yeah, so I definitely, Aztec times. That's it. But Frank, isn't it further back than Aztec times because they go to a.
But weren't the Aztecs the latest? Like that was the civilization. That was the civilization that was present when the Spanish arrived, right? So there was already European.
No, I'm talking about in Alien vs Predator. The temple that they go into is in the Arctic.
I think that was supposed to even be pre-Aztec. That was supposed to be
it
was supposed to be like starting civilization on Earth, kind of primordial.
Yeah. So I don't know. I wasn't. I like the idea. I like the concept. I wasn't. I wasn't really sold on the trailers.
I remember the trailers.
But you don't judge a book by its cover, even though I do. You try not to judge a film by its trailer, even though you do.
You can't help it sometimes.
Yeah, you can't. So I went in with a little bit of hopeful expectations because we watched it like a day after it released, and the internet, all of the internet, even the grannies, were just praising Prey, saying it was the best thing.
I was just trying to avoid it. I was trying to avoid everyone talking about it because I knew they were gonna watch it the next day, and I was like, oh no, please, I don't want to know. I don't want a good. I don't want a bad. I want to get in fresh. I want to just see it. I want to see it myself. I don't want to get this bias. However, I think that I've swayed a lot from outside opinions,
Yeah.
from in the past. But I think nowadays I'm a lot better now, because I don't think that I only saw a glimpse of like Prey is really good, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's really good, so I'm expecting really good. But I don't think I did that this time. So I think personal addendum. I think that I'm getting better as I
Yes.
go on.
And also, you had me, Claire, and Chrissy Joe in your ear the whole night, being like,
That's also true.
um, and this is what's interesting is all four of us watched it together, and all four of us came out disappointed.
Yes,
And,
I think
and
I quoted Prince Caspian's Dr. Cornelius. I must say I am very disappointed.
oh, that's good. That's good. That's good. And so
remember
I
that.
really want to dive in. I want to dive in first to like why I don't think it worked very well. And I think the biggest reason is the writing. I think the writing and the pacing of the story and the editing of that story
The
was
editing of that story.
terrible. Was terrible. And
It's
an example of
interesting
that.
that yeah. No, go on.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm interrupting.
It's all right. So an example of that is the very beginning of the movie where you have your main character, Naru, I think her name was. She's out doing some hunting, and she sees a predator ship, going through the clouds. It's very sort of mystical and impressive and scary looking, right? She sees that. The next scene we cut to is her shooting eagles or birds with her brother, and they're talking about some special ritual that she might go on, and she's being very casual, very blasé, and then she's just sort of off the cuff, oh yeah, I saw this thing in the sky,
Thunderbird, yeah.
the thunderbird in the sky. And I'm like, whoa, like you just saw, if I right now just saw a huge spaceship go flying through the sky, not only would I
seen in your life,
right? Not only would I be freaking out, I would be getting my phone, I would be sharing it everywhere, I'd be telling people as soon as possible.
that would
I
be the
wouldn't-
next week for you.
Yes, I wouldn't go downstairs and make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, watch an episode of South Park, wait for Claire to come home and have a conversation about South Park, and then be like, oh yeah, by the way, I saw an alien spaceship.
Yeah, and like it's funny you're like you're focusing on that, but that's kind of more or less the characters' reactions throughout the entire film.
Yes.
And it's so strange how consistent that is in this in the story that they're trying to tell.
Yes.
And I think that was like one of the first things that we were watching and going, I don't understand, but and I also think I added a statement where, I'm sure that, a culture like that where there is a lot of that sort of, that sort of belief in these sorts of things. But even so, like the fact that it actually happened and you saw it with your own eyes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Without any kind of, I think there's something, I don't know. I just feel like that's something that naturally should have been something. And also not just that, but also just for to establish the movie, like to establish who these people are and like what, what on earth is going to happen now to this life of theirs.
Right. And nothing, the thing is like nothing, I'm reluctant to say nothing happens, but I mean that in the sense that like emotionally, the journey we're taken on, like I feel nothing the whole time. And also what I mean by nothing is that we've seen how many other Predator films are there? We know the shtick. You have to do something original and interesting, and that really comes from making your characters really vivid, very three-dimensional, so that we care about them, so that when we're going through the Predator tropes, we want them to succeed. And I just didn't care whether she succeeded or not.
Yeah, Pocahontas didn't make a big deal about the clouds in the 1995 one. I want to see that again.
I've never seen Pocahontas, and I don't care, but that's because I don't like Disney very much. So that opening thing was very annoying to me, and then once we like get into the film, we're seeing clips of Predator. He's out doing stuff. killing snakes and
snakes and rodents and
pointless stuff. But the thing is, the movie keeps trying to kickstart. We don't really know what her mission is. What is her quest? She's hanging out with her mom and she's moping with her mom while her mom is grinding some, I don't know what she's grinding.
Juice.
Was it orange? What is it? Oh, was it?
I don't know. The orange.
Okay, right. Yeah. Okay. She's grinding the orange floury thing. Whatever. So, but then we don't get any sense of what is Naru's place within the tribe. Like, what is the hierarchy within the tribe? What is she? Is she bucking the system by wanting to go be a hunter, or is it okay for her to be a hunter? Because she's simultaneously trying to be a hunter, going hunting, and talking about this rite of passage that she needs to go through. But at the same time, they're like, "Oh, you need to go back to the village, to the tribe, and to the camp and do stuff there." And I'm like, "But why? You're not really establishing. You're not setting up that tension of what she is yearning for, and why she can't have it, and how she is being maybe stigmatized in her own community for wanting to do something that maybe goes against tradition." Which is a really cool idea and a really cool theme to explore, but
I like the whole thing. I want to see a good movie like this. This looks great. You know what I mean? But it. I wanted to say, go back to Predator 1. Within, I don't remember, within 5, 6, 7 minutes, we already have them pulling out into that base camp, talking to the general. We already get the relationship between Dylan and Dutch, and then they talk about why he's here. We're here because these guys, they went across the border, disappeared, and these gorillas down there are just hanging out with the orangutans. No, you know what I mean? And and we have this quick establishment of what's happening, and it's very easy to understand, and the characters sell that. They're and just with a few lines, you already know that Dutch has been through things like this. He knows, Dylan wants him because they're the best. He's like, my men are not expendable. You know what I mean? And all that kind of stuff that happens right at the beginning, and you already know. You're there, and they're off. And I wish that was the case for Prey. But I'm not here to crap on this movie. It's just that I watched it and I was disappointed.
Yeah, no, very, very disappointed. And there's a lot of people out there who are, who are criticizing the film, but I think for stupid reasons, because, they're like, oh, it's whatever, it has a female lead and da-da-da-da. I'm like, well, Alien vs. Predator had a female lead, and even though Alien vs. Predator is generally a bad film, the lead, she's pretty cool. I liked that. I liked her. Because I rewatched Alien vs. Predator about a month ago, and I was like, it was bad, but I was like, no, I actually like this character. I was on board with her the whole time, because I want her to succeed. She is freaking the heck out, and I want her to succeed.
Let's see how she overcomes that. It's so basic.
Yeah. I mean, Christy Joe makes a good point. One of the greatest flaws is so many stories these days lack three-dimensional characters and zero reason to care about them. And I think that... Say again?
Obi-Wan Kenobi?
Obi-Wan Kenobi?
Ooby-dooby-dooby?
The thing is, what happens with things like Predator, or Prey rather, is, because we know the tropes of Predator, we're not really... the filmmakers and the storytellers don't have to try very hard. They don't have to win the audience over, right? And therefore all they have to do is just tell you everything. I mean, there is no showing. There is zero showing in Prey. It's ridiculous.
Do you want to address some of Chief Broder Rule's?
We can, but I'm just going to point out that, yes, you have stumbled onto a pilot. Welcome to the #1 show.
The #1 show.
The #1 show.
That we mean it's the first one.
I do mean it's the first one, but also it is #1. Okay, which comment by Frank do I need to pull up?
I don't know, whichever you find is the best. I'm curious about the bones that make her bread. The bones to make her bread.
Oh, right, yeah. Oh, yeah. I can't find that. But yeah, I remember the comment. I remember seeing it. And I don't know where it is. Yeah, so the grind. I don't care about that scene anymore. We're done with that.
Okay.
Well, I
No,
mean,
anyway, but, like,
I guess
also,
actually
side
no.
characters,
Actually no.
think about this.
Hang on. I actually. Oh, I found it. Also, I'm going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it because
Wait,
here's
what's the bones to make her bread? I don't get it.
I don't know. So I think maybe she was whatever she was grinding. I don't know.
Oh, okay, that's what it was. I thought bread was like money, and I was like, money?
No. But this actually, Frank, bringing this up makes me remember something, and that is the other thing with this film is with all the kickstarts for it. Like it's at one point she's at home with her mom, and her mom's telling her you need to be here, and she's like, I want to be out there hunting. Oh, okay, well, whatever. And then suddenly she just is out there hunting. She tracks the guys who are out there doing the thing, and they just for the lion, and they're like, fine, whatever. But the thing is, with this stupid like grinding of the whatever the heck, throughout the film, there are so many moments where it just comes to a complete stop because it wants to tell you some historical facts about the Comanche tribe. I think I pronounced that correct. Sorry if I didn't. But they want to tell you historical facts. They want to show you historical elements. And there's nothing worse than the story coming to a standstill just so you can get some historical facts, right? I read a book recently.
I mean, how many podcasts did you have to do to research all this historical fact, right? To try to do a story.
Well, I mean, it is important to know what is legit,
I'm agreeing with you here.
But like I said, I recently read a book where I was hoping it was going to be really good. It was like a 1920s noir sort of thing set in. I'm not going to say where it is because people will be able to find out which one I'm talking about. No, what?
I'm joking.
Oh, and the thing is, every paragraph there would be a sentence worth of plot and a paragraph worth of a Wikipedia article, and I'm like, I don't give a crap about this. I want the story to progress. I want the story to engage with the historical facts. Make it work in your favor. And I just didn't think that Prey was doing that very well at all. The other example is the buffalo. We have
buffalo. Yeah,
we have this buffalo, and in Native American religion and mythology, certain tribes there is a lot of respect, and buffalo are considered holy and godlike. And so I was expecting something really deep to happen with that, and nothing happened with that, really.
Its only purpose was an interesting visual and a fake out, and getting the French to show up, just connecting it with the French. And I always felt like that was a little bit disconnected, because the French really didn't do much except become fodder to get killed. That's kind of how I felt.
Yeah, exactly. They were, we need people to die. Let's throw in some French trappers, and they can be the ones to die.
To meet new people and enjoy the arts. But Prey is dividing us and sowing discord.
Maybe Prey can be the new The Last Jedi. It's the new The Last Jedi, I guess. I don't know.
Oh, come on.
I don't know. The amount of love that's being poured out for it is quite fascinating to me.
It's baffling to me. I'm baffled. I am absolutely baffled. I mean, compared to The Predator, yes, it's fine, but it's only just kind of fine in comparison.
Yes.
Anyway, where were we here? So basically, the bulk of the movie is basically just her kind of wandering around, like Merida. She doesn't want to be a princess. She wants to go out in the wild and hunt the lion. And then there's this whole thing with the lion, and it's like, trying to get that lion to get hunted. And that was also quite a disappointment as well. I remember us talking about like, if only it was something more existential than just like a lion or something like that. It had something to do with, like, I don't know, like more environmental I always felt like this could have been like perfect opportunity to have the Predator do something that is so much more like psychologically affecting to the warrior tribe that he's stalking. You know what I mean?
Yeah. This line, that's Craig Bold movie giving the lead actress no personality.
I'm trying to think, and I can't think because she's not only not very proactive but also reactive, and her reactions were incredibly like, yeah, that happened, you know.
Well, you think of other really interesting leads. Like obviously Ripley comes to mind, but like Lewis from RoboCop comes to mind. April from Ninja Turtles comes to mind. I mean, my mind is stuck in the 80s and 90s because that's my era, you know. So like there's, you know, even shows like Jessica Jones and stuff like that. Like they all are tough and they have personalities, and you kind of get behind them and you root for them. Whereas with Naru, you're just sort of like,
yeah. She's just a vessel for us to look at more Predator stuff happening.
Yes, and it is literally no different than the Predator. Like I don't, you know, I don't remember any. I remember the faces, but like all the dudes who were in the Predator, just useless. They were just. They didn't have personalities. They were, you know.
That's so weird because they kind of do, right, in the Predator. You mean because it's Shane Black? He did his Shane Black magic on it, because like every character is like has some kind of trait, right? Yeah. And it's funny because you mentioned
but that's all they have though.
Yeah.
You know, one guy is, oh, I curse a lot. One guy, they all just tell jokes. They're all basically Shane Black's character from Predator. Or some version of that, which it's like,
but it's and it's funny that you say that, because I think that now that you're saying this, I'm kind of remembering like they don't like their person, like it doesn't like them as characters don't engage in the story, like you know what I mean, like there's nothing that kind of blends that in. They're just static the way they are, you know, like the guy with like the Punisher, the old Punisher with the
the dude from The Expanse. Yeah.
That's like all he does, and he just reacts the way he does. But there's no pulling, like using those characters to tell a story where these things get put into that narrative. I don't like. It's a bit weird to explain, but like I can just go back to Predator 1. Where we know all of these guys, we know kind of what they're like. Billy is always like tracking ahead, always worried about something, and when they talk about him, they're like, "What's got Billy so spooked?" Thomas Jane, thank you.
Yeah,
and you see what I mean? Like he's not supposed to be that way, and that's already something that's kind of changing the character, and something that we are curious about knowing. And also,
a really funny example to me is Alien versus Predator, because even those characters had more personality and have stuck with me far more than anything else. The Predator and the girl working together to defeat the alien, because he realized, like I even though I watched it recently, I've always remembered
it.
You know what? I didn't mind it. It's schlock. Don't get me wrong, it's schlock, and I know that the film is bad, but I'm just kind of like, I get what's going on here, and I'm cool with it. Right on. Like, you know, cool, whatever. But Prey I just, from a narrative perspective, a narrative point of view, I just don't think that it landed in the way the reactions are claiming that it landed. The dog, I gotta mention this, because so the dog was probably the best thing, but there's one scene that I don't know why it's in the movie.
Oh yeah.
And it's when he is chasing the bear away. The dog chases the dog runs after the bear runs after the dog through the river, right?
Yeah.
And then the girl comes down and she's, you know, looking around thinking what she's gonna do. And then in the most comedic fashion possible, the dog comes bolting back, blasts right past his master, and then suddenly she sees the bear coming, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I said it when we were watching. I was like, this is like Jack Sparrow and the cannibals chasing him in Pirates of the Caribbean 2. Like someone just needs to take that audio of Jack going ah and just put that over the dog as it's running past, because I'm like, this you played this scene like comedy. Why would you do that? And it's like, I can only assume the editors had no effing clue what they were doing.
No, because like the way that when you were talking about the editing, the way that it was paced, like you said, it always feels like it keeps trying to kickstart something and it never kickstarts anything. And every individual scene progressing to trying to build some kind of tension doesn't work because because you could start the movie at any point in those kinds of like build up moments, because there's nothing like that's really progressing any kind of engaging point A to point B telling of a story, I think. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Yeah. So this is what disappointed me a lot. And do you want to talk about The Predator?
Yeah, we can do that now. So actually, no, there's a couple of things a few more things I want to say, but I find this funny. I haven't seen Prey, but at this point, I don't have the energy for Predator movies anymore.
I love Frank.
And I think that's spot on. My last few complaints, because we want to talk about other stuff tonight, is like there's in terms of like her, people. I'm reluctant to call her the M word, the MS, Mary Sue. She's a Mary Sue, right?
We don't say these things over here.
We don't say these things, but I just did anyway. And an example of that is she is running away from the Predator. Her foot gets caught in a bear trap.
Oh yeah, the bear trap.
She opens the bear trap and she just runs away. She doesn't have a limp. She doesn't have a broken ankle or foot or leg. She just is perfectly fine. Her motherfucking leg was caught in a bear trap and there's no sign of damage. Like when you write a book, like you always have to remember when you've hurt your characters, because you need to remember how that is going to affect the rest of the story. Like, it drove me nuts. Like, absolutely drove me nuts.
It's interesting that you say that too. I know that a lot of people would say that that's a nitpick or something like that. But these little
you go get your legs stuck in a bear trap and then try and run away from a predator.
Fair enough. There's a line between details kind of not working, but you can let it go, and getting your leg stuck into a bear trap kind of situations. And I also feel like that the reason why we're also talking about these selective scenes is because there's like not much else to talk about, because it's basically just another Predator movie where the Predator is stalking somebody, and that person is just not. There's nothing to that person that is trying to defeat the Predator, and this person just goes through different events with the Predator chasing her, and at the end of it, what happens, and that's the end of the story. There's nothing else. I think that's at the end of it all. There's nothing else to like take away from it. There's nothing else to be entertained by other than it's a Predator stalking. Like it's another Predator thing happening. Because like I want to compare it to the first one because we watched it the day after, and there's so much more. There's so much more going on in that story than just the Predator stalking them. You know what I mean? They had the whole thing. You set us up, and then there's tension between the people who are stuck there, and there's always something that's still focused on who's hunting them and how to defeat them, but also these other little bits that make the story just more dense and entertaining to watch, so you can watch it over and over again. There's always something nice to observe about it.
I think
quality. It's quality.
I think the final thing I can say on this, and it's what I said to you guys when we were watching it, and that is the movie. It really just felt like it was written by a first-year creative writing student who were more
first 20 minutes.
Yes. Yeah, I mean I
guess so.
it felt like someone who didn't quite know how to handle storytelling, who had done a bunch of research on a Native American tribe and were really trying to make pieces fit that weren't really fitting. And also, they weren't that interested in telling a predator story, but they kind of were, but they kind of weren't. Um, and I think because of that, we don't really get a real sense of either the predator or the tribe's people. I think that's why Naru is so thin as a character, and why I don't care about her. Because we're just sort of
Not to
dumped
mention
into
any of
these.
the other characters.
Yeah,
Any of the other characters.
no, yeah. I mean, I don't remember any of their names. I just, like there's that one scene where she's being dragged back to the tribe, and then one guy just starts wailing on her, and I'm like, why is he beating the shit out of her? I don't get this. This is vile and mean, and I don't understand why he is being so
They were
mean.
never established as being vile and mean, or we've never gotten a reason
Yeah.
for them to be vile and mean to her in the
Yeah.
entire.
And it was literally just so that the predator could come and kill them. And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
make something more out of this. Give me the emotion. Like, what is the reason behind this? And the
Who are these guys? I wish I knew who they were, but I didn't know. I thought they were
Yeah.
all hell, but I guess they're not. But I don't know. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter because the predator's coming.
yeah. And the thing is, I have to say that I don't think that this film is any better than Shane Black's. I really don't.
I think it's slightly better.
I mean, maybe just slightly, just slightly. But like everyone's saying, oh, I love that it's this stripped back thing. But it's like you're saying it's stripped back solely for the reason that it's set in 1719, and that there's not machine guns, and that they're just in the wilderness. That's the only reason you're saying it's stripped back. It's the same. It's the exact same kind of scene that we saw with the very first Predator.
I feel like that too, except without anybody interesting who's going to be on interesting characters on screen to follow.
I mean,
along.
Predators. That's stripped back. That's just 6 people stuck in the woods being killed one by one.
Yeah,
that's stripped back. It's the same thing as people in the wilderness, because that's what's fun about Predator, is that sort of you don't know where they are sort of thing. But this just.
And Predators, I totally underestimated Predators when I watched it first, because I remember watching it for the first time in 2010, and I was like, it's okay. But now when I want to watch it again, because there's been so many bad Predator movies that I'm gonna go back to this and be like, this is great actually in comparison.
Yes.
At least it's got something. I don't know, sometimes it's hard to explain what you feel when you want to go back to see that, but that there's an entertaining story you can follow along with, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, let's just quickly talk about the Predator itself. I think we also had some problems with that.
Oh yeah, the actual the alien itself. Now I hated it. I absolutely hated the design. When he took his helmet off, I didn't like the helmet for one. I don't understand why he had a bone helmet.
Because you kill some beasts. Probably that was a really important beast to kill, and you make a helmet out of it. You polish it on your helmet. You know what I mean?
But it was the helmet. The skull was the helmet. And
it doesn't matter. It's whatever. I don't know.
Why no other Predators had that? And I get the.
There's been a lot of different Predator designs throughout the years now, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, I just thought, they always carry the skulls, and that's fine. But yeah, so the over reliance on the Predator being mostly CGI was not good.
Yeah, with the transparency thing.
Yeah, I think the reason that he was mostly CGI and or invisible for the film is budgetary reasons. Because he's invisible most of the time, or partially invisible.
But
so
maybe it was just because they just had an idea that if he's invisible, it's gonna go with the textbook example of don't show so much and leave it to the imagination. In which case, I would say you can do so much without a Predator at all.
Yes.
Is he there? Make him invisible.
We watched the Predator, and
still scary.
Very rarely do we see him.
Powerful. And he was so inept as well. I just wanted to bring that up because it was embarrassing how tool this guy was. KJ called him Steve. We called him Steve throughout the entire thing.
Steve.
Yeah, he's just Steve the Predator to me now. It's just like he gets beat up so many times trying to be really cool, and he like what's the first thing you see with this Predator? He kills a snake. Big deal, man. Killed a snake. I like when they had that shot of those bison that were skinned, even though it was the French. That should have been like the opening, you know what I mean? Where it's like,
Oh gosh,
holy
yeah.
hell, what's going on? Something's rotten in the state of the Appalachians. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, that sort of dread and that sort of like intimidate. Like I was thinking like an intimidation factor that the Predator could be doing, which could be something new, because we saw the Silent Stalker thing, but you could also do like, you could also like have the Predator maybe kind of psychologically mess with, in this case you have the tribe, and I think that would be an interesting idea. And you know,
Yeah.
just drive them to madness or something like that and then take them out. I don't know what I'm talking about, but you know what I'm saying. But he was just so inept. He didn't get caught in a bear trap once. I think he did. He had to have.
Yeah, he did. I think he did. Yeah.
And I know that people say, oh, but the first one got caught in the trap. Yeah, but this is after like the scenes and scenes of us not knowing where he is. And what I loved about the first one is that every time the Predator shows up, every time we find out where he is, he's always so close behind one of our characters. He's like so close to getting you, you know what I mean? And he's done like, so there's such a big difference between this Predator that, sure, he killed a bear, but when he got killed by his own weapon at the end of the movie, sorry, spoiler. I just thought this is pathetic. This is like, I think KJ just mentioned this is just the guy that they send on Earth. It's just like, come on, dude, just do what you want. You think you're hot stuff? No, he'll die.
I don't think any of us, to this day, 4 days later, 5 days later, whatever, like really understand how he died. Well, she did something with the helmet, and something went back and hit him in the head.
And we didn't, and that's another thing. Like we never got her kind of learning something about the technology or anything. She just kind of did it. And maybe there's a scene or two that I missed that might have showed that, but it's still, it's not like Arnold, you know, finding the mud and
yes. And the thing is,
and slowly figuring out every one of the Predator's advantages and using it against him.
The last thing that we'll talk about is just very briefly is the end of the movie makes no sense to me, because she comes back to the tribe with the Predator's head, throws it down, and then suddenly everyone is praising her. No one in the fucking tribe knew what she was doing, or really knew that the Predator was out there. And then suddenly she's like, it's confusing. It's like they give her a staff, and I'm like, have they just made her the chief? Why? Like, what is going on? Like, because I think even in the end credits, I think she has a staff as if she is the chief, and I'm like, hold on, where's the chief?
I don't know.
Like, who was the chief?
The tribe had nothing to do with the Predator.
Yeah,
nothing to do with them.
And I think on the spot when we were talking,
like her coming back to it's like when Frodo comes back from the Shire, to the Shire, and then they're like, what the hell? Like, remember, what's his name? Proudfoot shows up, like, is looking at them in their big ponies and their decked out outfits, and he's just like,
yeah,
that's what it felt like, because they had nothing to do with it.
Yeah. I mean, I spitballed a couple of ideas when we were watching the film, like very early on, and I'm like, you could have done a movie about a tribe that is being forced off their land by bastard, colonizers, right? Uh-huh. And in the process of this situation, you then throw a Predator into the mix, and maybe she's separated from her people and has to team up with someone or not. That could have been an interesting idea. Or you literally just could have better established what her role was within this tribe. and given her a reason. You know, is she the chief's daughter who is bucking the system, wants to be more? You know, they're trying to tell her no, but then there's problems with the local, you know, colony, and that they're dealing with stuff, and then suddenly again you throw a predator into the mix and all shit goes haywire, and then by the end it makes sense that she's made the chief because she's the chief's daughter. She takes command because they realize
there's a lot you could still establish on there. Anyway, I'm sorry I'm ignoring the comments. I was just kind of like just talking about Steve and his antics in this movie.
Steve.
And then when they added the lines, Frank, they added there's so many predator lines in this movie. Remember? And he's just like, if it bleeds, we can kill it. And
like, speaking of that,
I watched the original and it was so good when Arnold said it because it had meaning.
Yes, the very, very last thing I'm going to talk about with this movie is...
This is the third time we said this.
Good. It comes in threes.
I can't help it, yeah.
So, the acting really wasn't very good. I know people are saying the acting was amazing. The acting was not very good from anyone at all. It was just very...
I hate saying this too, but
it was low-budget acting. It was a low-budget film. There's a reason this film is not being played in cinemas, and it's because it's not very good. And all of the actors have Santa Monica dude bro accents. They all speak like their principal PC from South Park, which I know you don't know who that is, but yeah. But they're all sort of like, dude, like there's a lion and we gotta go kill the lion. Like, you know, it's probably over there somewhere, dude. Like, all right.
That's it, man.
Come on, guys, yeah. And I'm like, why are they talking like this? Why are you talking like this? Stop it.
I understand, but it's not necessary. I think you'd buy it if they would portray something with their characters that they don't have, unfortunately.
Maybe. Tone it down.
Yeah, it's enough talking about this.
Yes.
I think we've said most of the gist. I mean, there's so much you could kind of keep talking about with this thing because, like,
oh yeah, no.
For the first time, it's just been so clear to me what the strengths of the first movie is and what the weaknesses of this movie is, you know?
Yes.
But anyway, so, comments are there.
Comments, yes. Well, Frank said that Moana had the same issue. Nobody knew why she left during her adventure. I've never seen the film, so I have no comments on that.
I've seen the film. All I remember is the beginning and end.
Amazing. Pathfinder said they should have done Predator in Victorian London against the backdrop of era of Jack the Ripper.
Dude.
And done a tough
That's like Predator 2, but maybe good this time?
Yeah, possibly. The other problem that you have with that is the line that the predators hunt in places that are hot.
That's also true. You want to keep that a little bit. It's an interesting. We can do Victoria and Victoria era. What did they colonize? India? You can do that.
They did.
Oh, smarter than a beaver. Yeah, smarter than a beaver, baby.
That line, we made fun of that line so hard. I just can't. That smarter than a beaver was the thing that baffled me. It's like you sat there watching a beaver drown, and you sat there watching it gnaw its leg off, and therefore you learn something that you are smarter than a beaver because you wouldn't do that.
That's like me writing the script and being like, I'm filming this first draft. I don't care what it says. I wrote it. I'm filming the first draft. Also, like the just coming on an execution standpoint, I was kind of disappointed with the overall way it was filmed too. It just felt like
cheap.
Yeah, it felt like there was a lot of shots that were very conventional, and there was a lot of ways of, displaying this information that was very, very, very conventional as well. And there wasn't a lot of when they were in Mexico filming Predator 1. I remember they had a horrible time. That's what I heard. The cast and the crew had a terrible time filming in a real jungle. Very frustrated because the foliage. John McTiernan always said the foliage. If you go to real jungle, the view stops here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't see. There are no, and they brought these big cameras with them, and they had to film in stock that had to also incorporate the low light, so that's why they had that grain into it. And I feel like that might have also been uh, retrofitted purposefully because it gave that kind of feeling to the movie as well, where it
Yeah.
and like I can remember so many things in Predator 1 that gives you a sense of unholy dread, just with these little elements over the desaturated color grading and wide shots that we got in this one, because I would have loved to have seen like more of like using the environment to give you some interesting, not just angles, but interesting ways to tell the
Yeah.
story, especially with the Predator.
Yeah.
Probably could have thought a little bit more outside of the box of how to implement the Predator in this environment now.
Yeah.
Instead of just cutting away to the Predator killing another snake, or killing a wolf.
Frank asked a good question. He goes, "So is the issue with the director? His vision was not right for the film, but then he follows it up with, because if nothing is working, then it's on him, right?" I would say that's complicated.
Process.
Yeah, I would say it's complicated. The script might be bad, and you might be forced to film a bad script. You have producers involved who want certain things that can cause problems. Blade Runner is an example. The original cut, perfect example. Or Josh Trank's Fantastic Four stick,
Yeah.
where that was, he's been vocal about the studio being the reason behind the issue.
I mean, there's always like that's the thing about I think that when someone says it's a miracle any movie gets made, it's so true, because there's so many layers of people. I am from Twofold Podcast. Did you recognize my voice? There's so many layers of people looking at the script and making decisions, and the director kind of has to go between everyone's kind of opinions and thoughts to funnel that in and try to, as best they can, to create a movie that they see in their head with all these I mean, and it also depends production on production as well. Who knows? Maybe you got a person who's producing that's a jerk, and he's just like, I want this to be made. Yeah. Maybe you got a producer
my son is the star of the show.
See what I mean? And then maybe you got a producer who's like, no, I'm gonna let you make your movie. I'm just gonna be here to make sure everything's working so you can get those shots.
Yeah.